Sometimes you'll need to work with more complex media in your websites, like Flash or other plugins. It's usually better to utilize newer technologies like HTML5 video, but it's important to know about these older elements in case you encounter them. The object element was introduced in the HTML4 specification, and its purpose was to allow for general media elements to be embedded. Unfortunately, things didn't pan out so well, and a mixture of plugins, specifications, and browser inconsistencies created lots of confusion. The good part is, most instances where you work with the object tag will simply involve you copying and pasting the embed code from a site like YouTube, for example, and then maybe modifying that code just a little bit. So instead of typing out everything ourselves, let's go ahead and grab some embed code from another website and dissect it. So we'll go ahead and head over to YouTube here, to Charlie Bit My Finger, and then we'll go ahead and embed it. And you want to make sure you have the checkbox Use Old Embed Code checked. So we'll go ahead and copy our object here, and then we're going to go ahead and switch over to TextMate and paste. We'll save that out, and when we switch back to the browser and refresh, you can see that we now have our YouTube video embedded onto our page. So let's go ahead and switch over to our text editor and take a look at this. Now this looks like a ton of code, but let's go ahead and take it one step at a time. First, let's break up these elements so that they're on separate lines. So we need to break up all of our param elements here, which we'll take a look at in just a second. We have an embed element here. And then we should have our closing object tag. So we'll put that back for proper indentation. And first, let's go ahead and look at the object tag. Now, in a nutshell, the object element was the W3C's attempt to unify multimedia embedding on the web. This didn't work out. The standard was open to interpretation, and now there are several implementations and cross-browser compatibility issues. In other words, this object tag doesn't work the same in every web browser the way you probably think it might work. But there are some workarounds being applied here. Now, as you can see, we have two attributes on the object tag, width and height, and as you probably guessed, these are actually setting the width and height of the video in pixels. Now, you see this here, but we also have a width and height here on the embed tag. We'll get to that in just a second. Next, let's look at the param tag or parameter tag. These parameter tags or parameter elements set various properties onto the object element. So for example, you can see we have things like allow full screen, and the value is set to true or yes. So you should be able to make this YouTube video full screen. Allow script access, and that's just for JavaScript interaction. And then of course we have the movie, which is set to a URL value, which is just the actual YouTube video. The object tag and param tag are mostly for Internet Explorer compatibility. Next, we have the embed tag, which sort of duplicates all of this functionality for other browsers. The embed tag is not actually a W3C standard, but even so, it has better cross-browser support with the exception of Internet Explorer. You need to have both the object tag with the params and the embed tag for this to work in Internet Explorer and other browsers. So just to emphasize, this embed tag is a little bit of a hack. It has nothing to do with these param or object tags. It's just another way of doing it. Now, if you'll notice, in the embed tag, we have some attributes such as width and height, which I pointed out before, allow script access, allow full screen, and then of course over here, we have the SRC or source attribute, and you'll notice that these are the same values as we have in the param tags. So instead of having these in tags, we actually have them in attributes in a single embed tag, which in a way is actually a much nicer way of doing it. So while you can use the object tag to interact with things like Flash, it's often better to use HTML5, JavaScript, and other open technologies for creating web apps and embedding video. We'll learn more about HTML5 and JavaScript later on. Flash and other plugins aren't quite as good because they're not always well supported and they belong to individual companies. Open standards like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are favored because they belong to no one, and yet everyone at the same time. They'll always be free to use, and they'll always be well supported. In modern times, you probably shouldn't use the object or embed elements, but it's important to know about them in case you do have to work with them.